Okay, here we're going to make a six-sided box, and I just want to show you a couple of checks that you need to do before you go to put this together if you want it to go together precisely. Um, a moment ago, I put these together like this and put them up nice and tight, and I discovered that this side here was just a little bit long, so I sanded this corner off, right? And now, as you can see, I've got four nice seams, right? So I haven't done this yet. I'm going to take this part and put it over here, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip over all of these, and then take my top and do the same check. Oh, well, that was lucky. Oh, no, wait a minute. All right, I'm not sure if you can see it, but there is a bit of a gap here, right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to sand a hair off of this corner in this direction. And I'll be right back. Now that was just a touch on my edge sander. Yeah. Yeah. That wasn't enough. There's still that gap. So I'm going to hit this one more time. In fact, I might hit it by hand. You know what? Let's do that. I'll do it by hand. Because it's so little. Can you see that? Yes. Um, Ooh, that was it. That was it. Look at that. There must have just been a burr or something on this. So, as you can see, I got nice, really nice seams all the way around there. Okay. Now, I'm going to set this over here and bring back the original bottom and flip these again. Now, if you're paying attention here, when this one comes up, like when I flipped it, I had this on the bottom like that, and when I flipped it, I was actually on the wrong side, right? So I think what I need to do is to just double check this. If I'm going to do this, in order to get basically that to work, no, you know what? I'm right. Okay. All right, so I'm good. I'm good. So all of my pieces now fit together with very little error. Maybe a 64th, maybe a 32nd. I mean, it's possible, but I would say a 64th. I'm really close on everything. So if I want to make this box such that it's so accurate that I can make it perfect by sanding the plywood within a single layer of the veneer, I need to be very, very close. The smaller you make something, the closer you have to be, right? Because when something's really small, you're going to inspect it more closely, right? If we were just talking about a cabinet on the ground and it's 4.5 inches tall, and you're going to put a countertop on it, you don't have to be within a 64th. But if you're making something small, you really need to be super close. Otherwise, you're going to have obvious gaps and problems, and it's going to be much more much more easy to perceive the imperfections, right? So here's what we're going to do. We're going to use dowels to put this together for alignment. I have a machine. It's a horizontal boring machine that does one hole at a time, but it can align those holes very precisely. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put a hole basically like here, and then matching holes on the side of this board here and here, okay? And then when I flip this up, the dowel will go in here, and those will come together, and we'll get the alignment that we're looking for. So how do I do that? How do I make the proper marks so as to make it easy for me to end up with dowels in precise locations? Well, there's a couple things you can do, but we're gonna go with my chosen route here. And what I have here is just a piece of metal that I've sanded to be nice and square, right? You could use, you know, any kind of a metal block that's nice and square. And I've got a couple of these guys. This is from the same sheet of plywood. This is just some scrap that was left over. And these are the exact same thickness as all of my pieces, okay? Now, normally when you cut a scrap of plywood, you don't always get an exact thickness, you know, the right thickness for your project, okay? So you have to, you know, you have to really pay attention to what you're doing. Now, this is Baltic birch, so it tends to be better than most plywood, okay? You could take a scrap from a single sheet of plywood and have all your pieces from that one piece of plywood, like a regular, like contractor grade or a big box store plywood, and you wouldn't necessarily have a good what am I calling this? I don't know. It's a spacer, right? And you wouldn't necessarily have a good spacer. This particular scrap here didn't come from the same Baltic birch board. So if you're paying attention here, you should see I've got quite a seam. I mean, I can really feel the difference there on the thickness, because these scraps were not from this piece of Baltic birch. So even sheet to sheet on Baltic birch, it can be rough trying to figure out how to get a really good spacer, a spacer that's going to really work, because it's the right thickness for the pieces that you're measuring or cutting. Having spacers that are the right size for, you know, this project is super important. So what am I going to do? Well, since my spacers are a little on the thick side, what I could do is I could sand or plane them to make them the right size, okay? But it would be better to get a piece of wood that is already this thickness and make spacers for this project, okay? If I'm concerned about accuracy, that's what I want to do. So let me check and see if I've got a piece of wood. This should be from the same piece of plywood. All right. Now, if you see that, that is very nice. That's the right thickness for this project. So I'm going to make a couple of spacers out of this, and then we'll be able to proceed. Okay, 2 new spacers. Let's see what we get. Oh yeah. See, now these are right there on multiple pieces, multiple sides. These are good spacers. Again, these were cut from basically the same batch of plywood, but not the same piece of plywood. So these are bad. All right, so in our quest for accuracy, what we need to do now is we need to put some marks that we can use on the machine to put the holes that we want in the proper places. So again, we go a hole here and a hole here, and a hole here and a hole here. So let's just move these guys out of the way. And if I want a hole here, I'm going to want to put the piece of wood on the machine like this, and I'm going to need my line on this side. So what I'm going to do is put this up here, and then to make these holes, I'm going to need my lines on this side. So I'm going to bring this back a bit, okay? Now what's going to happen is I'm going to take my spacers, and that's what these are for. I'm going to put these on their side like this. Now, once I have that basically lined up, it doesn't have to be completely perfect. This is to make my lines. So what I'm really going for here is that I have both pieces gripped, and that there's a nice straight line here with equal thickness on both sides. But it just needs to be by eye. It doesn't need to be, you know, extreme. Okay. Then what I do is I take my piece of metal and my pencil, and again, we're going for accuracy here. Okay, so I'm going to want a sharp pencil or even a knife, right? But again, it depends on, you know, what machine you're using. My machine, it's a pencil line, so a knife line for me is kind of overkill because for one thing, I can't see them, and for another thing, the line on my machine is only a pencil line anyway. Okay, so that's going to be one hole, and here we'll do this, and that's going to be one hole, and that's it. I need to repeat this process for all my pieces, and I want to repeat that process in such a way that each piece is in the same orientation every time. All right, now wait a minute. I don't need these spaces for this one, right? So I'm going to turn this temporarily. This is where you can get confused. I prefer to do this on a small square bench. I'm thinking now that maybe I should move to that bench, because then I can walk around and you can, you know, see that normally I don't like to move these things around that much because I'm going to get confused. But here we go. And then, yeah, let's do this. All right. Okay. All right, I'm going to move to my square bench so that I'm not rotating this all the time and possibly making a mistake. All right, be right back. Okay, so these want to go here for this one. Oh, oops. There we go. All right, again, all that matters is that this piece is lined up with this piece such that the thickness over here and over here is pretty much the same. It's not terribly critical, but my spacers give me a nice solid surface, right? So when I go to put my metal marking gauge here, I'm in a good spot. Now, I have a hole started basically exactly where I want there, because I was using this as a piece of scrap earlier, just to test some things out. So I'm going to reuse that hole, but I will have to drill it deeper. All right. So let's put these here. That takes care of that. Now I don't need those spacers for this one. There we go. Okay. All right, now I've managed to mark all 4 of these pieces correctly. Now when I go to the machine and I start drilling the actual holes, the problem I'm going to run into is there isn't any hint on these lines to tell me, hey, hold this piece vertical when you drill and hold that piece horizontal when you drill. So what I'm going to do is mark my marks. And how I've been doing this is just turning these lines into an H, and then turning these lines into a V. Right? So now these are marked V for vertical, and these are marked H for horizontal. So if I just go like this, obviously it would have been better if I did these all at once, but I didn't want to confuse the issue. And of course, you use what's best for you as far as symbols go. I'm doing these because this is the first time that I've showed this to anyone, and I just want it to be extremely clear. Once you've done this a couple of times, for a while it's in your recent memory, this is all very straightforward and easy to do. But if you continue to use the H and V setup, I think you can come to this at any time and pretty much not make any mistakes. All right, so I've got my H's and V's. So now this is my bottom. I'm done with the bottom. 5, 6, 7, and 8. Okay, and then I'm going to do the same thing I did on the other side. I'm going to bring this up, put it here, insert my spacers, hit it with the clamp, and then draw my lines. Pencils keep hitting the ground. So now I'm going to do this side. And again, I'm just making sure this is parallel. That's really all I need to worry about at this stage. I put the clamp in there. Make sure I'm aligned. Tighten it down. Draw 2 lines. Of course, it does matter where the lines go, right? You want them close to the corner, but it's not critical that they be like the same distance. Just eyeball it, all right? That's not what's critical. The machine is very good at what it does. What it needs is 2 lines that match. That's why we're using the clamp. So spacers are done. We're going to take this and bring it here. Tighten that down. So again, would I do this for a cabinet? No. No, with a cabinet, I probably wouldn't need the clamps. It might be useful to use the clamps now that I think of it. But, you know, a tape measure might work to make the lines on the clamp. If you weren't going to paint the cabinet, sure, then maybe it would be worthwhile, especially if you're using plywood, because you have to be accurate within pretty close amount. Otherwise, you're going to sand right through that first layer of plywood of veneer, and that's not good. But really, what I like about this machine is I get the accuracy I want. All right, so I'm going to put H's on all of this. Like I say, you after you've done this for a while, you won't need to do this, because what you'll do is you'll do all your horizontals at the same time, and then you'll do all your verticals at the same time. And it's really not that difficult to not mess this up. But by overdoing it on the lines in the beginning, you know, you won't make any mistakes, and you won't get discouraged, and you know, it's worth it, especially if you're coming back to this after a while. You see, you know, I might not do something like this for 2 months, so writing all those H's and V's helps prevent me from making any horrible mistakes. So the key features you want to look for on this machine are, we've got our line. This is stick-on sandpaper, makes it easier to hold things still while the machine is working. We've got our vertical line here. So this right here, these are vertical lines, so they're going to go like this, and they match up with the horizontal line. Once this is aligned and we hit the pedal, we're going to get the boring head is going to come through, and then it'll drill the hole. Over here, I want you to pay attention to this little measuring device. This wire here, which is easily adjustable, engages with the gradations on the ruler, and can help you very precisely determine how deep you're going. I was going to put a stop on the machine at one point, but it just wasn't worth it. It's far more easy to use the indicator, because I find that I'm always going to a different depth, right? So, for example, on this is 3/4, right? So I like to go about, 5/8 of the way through on a 3/4 board, and for the vertical, and then I haven't done 3/4 in a while, so I don't actually remember how far I'm going to need to go on the horizontal drill, right? But if I had a stop, I would have to keep setting the stop, right? But this way, I'm going to drill a hole, put a dowel in it, see how much it's sticking out, and then figure out how deep I want to go in the, on the top and bottom piece for the horizontal drilling. And so if this goes like this, I can only go so far here, right? I mean, the drill can only go so far. So depending on how long my dowel is, I can only get so much dowel in there. But this, I can drill this as deep as I need to. I don't want to drill it too deep, but I do want to over drill it maybe 1/8 of an inch, right? And then that way I get a really good fit, plenty of engagement off the dowel for both sides, so I get that great alignment that I'm looking for. If I over drilled this, my dowel could go all the way through when I'm fitting them together, and then, you know, I basically wouldn't have a dowel because it'd be stuck inside, not sticking out enough, right, to really create an alignment. So I'm going to drill my first hole vertically because I got V's looking at me. And like I said, I'm going to go about 5/8 because this is 3/4 inch plywood. So I've engaged, and I'm just taking it nice and easy. And when I get to 5/8, there we go, I'm done. All right, and that's my hole. So that hole is going to now take a standard 1/4 inch dowel, but these come in all different lengths. So I don't know what you have handy, right? But what I do is I'll pop that in there with whatever I have handy, and then measure the stick out. That's about 1/2 inch. So I'm going to go 5/8 again on the bottom. Now this part wants to be, okay, where's 8? 5, 6, 7. Oh, so that would be 8, and then that's strange. Apparently, I have to go back in my video and look at my alignment. Okay then. So where was I? All right. I think I was right about here, and I was measuring the stick out, and I got 1/2 inch. 1/2 inch. So now what I'm going to do is step on the pedal, and the boring head here. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's kind of like a Forstner bit. It's got a big point in the middle. We're going to ignore that, and what we want to do is get a good 1/2 inch, maybe a little more, stick out. And what I'm seeing is actually 11/16 is where I want to be. So, well, it doesn't matter how much. I want to make sure that I'm sticking out at least 1/2 inch, right? And I'm definitely doing that. So now I instead of reading this, I want to go over here. Sorry. And what I want to do is I want to see, okay, where is my needle on this indicator, because that's how deep I want to go. Okay, and what I'm seeing is 11/16 basically. Okay, so due to the parallax, I'm actually going to line up with the 5/8 inch mark, and I should be good to go. So let's give that a try. We're going to take this over here like this. All right. Oh. You know, I feel like I'm not quite up where I want to be. Oh, that's much better. Okay, I can turn that off. And now I check this. Against that. Well, I'm definitely deep enough. Oh, yeah. And I am right there. Perfectly flush. Okay. So now, it's just a matter of repeat, repeat, repeat. I'm going to do all of the verticals first. And then all of the horizontals. Oop. This machine is really quiet. It's really wonderful. You can see I have a clamp on the machine. When you have a long piece, right? A long piece this way, and it's flat like this, you can get, from the weight on the sides of the table, you can get a bowing effect. So this clamp, you bring this clamp in and you clamp it down, and you can negate, you know, almost any length of wood trying to fight you, right? So that you can put enough force there. But I don't have a clamp going the other direction, because if your wood was like this and it was really long, well, it doesn't really, I mean, still holding it down is still going to be pretty straight, right? You'd be hard-pressed to come up with a situation where your piece was so long and you were doing it on the side like that, that you'd actually get a gap in there. So there's no need for a clamp in the other direction, as far as I can tell. But of course, if you're doing something special and you want to add it, you know, it wouldn't be that difficult. I would just remove this sandpaper and bolt a nice big table to this table, and then just, you know, it's just a simple screw to change the height. It's on a dovetail way, so it's very accurate, very easy. To adjust the table up and down. Now, one thing I have not done, I want to be very clear on that, is I did not set this table beyond just sight. Okay? There's no need to make it bore the hole exactly in the center of your wood. In fact, I think this is still set for 1/2 inch, right? But it's, you know, it's too late now. I already started, so I don't feel like going back and changing it. It'll work fine, but this just shows you that you don't actually need it to be adjusted perfectly, this table, right? All you need is accurate lines that are drawn on the correct side of the wood, and you're done. The machine does everything else flawlessly, and you just don't have to worry about it. I did some 1/2 inch. I did a 1/2 inch box because I had 1/2 inch scrap. And it worked great. And then I was a little disappointed I didn't film it because now I got to do the whole thing again. But it's fine. It would have been smart to adjust the table first. Then I would be in the middle of the plywood on every drill, on every hole. But you know, I'm far enough away from the edge that it's not going to matter. You can see there was already a hole there, and you know, I wasn't perfectly lined up with the previous hole, but it still looks good. It didn't move while I was drilling it. It's very easy to do. The sandpaper makes it so nothing moves. Everything's easy to line up, everything's easy to see. It's so quiet, it's pretty much just peaceful. Alright. Now I'm going to do the horizontals. And there are just 2 pieces. I already did that hole, that's why. There are only 2 pieces that need horizontal holes. So I'm almost done. And then I'll be ready to test it. All right, last piece. Okay, you can tell I'm still new to this machine. I'm still learning. It seems like when I push down on the sandpaper with my fingers here and just hold it in the back with my thumbs, or if it was bigger, I would just hold it with my belly. Then it stays in place very nicely. Oops. All right, that's the cutting. Now let's go do a test fit. Okay then, this is the moment of truth where we see how accurate we are, and whether or not this machine is worth anything. No. Those probably want to go on last. 4, 2, 1. Well, that was easy. Oh, look at that. Okay, all right, I got it. Holy mackerel. So now the question is, can it be brought into true on all sides within one veneer of the plywood? Certainly looks like it. I'm going to have to glue it together. I'm going to glue it together, and I mean, that side's going to be super easy because if anything, these are all sticking up and this is low, so that's great. So you wouldn't remove anything from that. This is going to need a little bit of sanding, but not much. And this again, this is all good. Of course, these sides don't, they're not going to need anything. Well, this is looking really promising. I'm going to glue this together and, clamp it up, and we'll be back. All right, I'm going to say I think again, that it's not perfect, but all sides appear to be either needing edge sanding and only a slight amount. Like this is actually perfectly flush, you know, so is that. But I know that part of that needs a little bit of edge sanding, and the parts that need surface plywood sanding, I can see already it's less than 1 veneer thick. So I should have a perfect box when this is dry. We will see you later. All right, so it's been an hour or so. Let's see what we end up with. Oh, looks like I got a little extra glue. All right. I need a sander. Okay. Holy mackerel. Wow. Okay then. Okay. This is, I think, the biggest gap. So this is it right here. This is the really good test. If I'm going to make a mistake, it's going to show up right here by me sanding through this layer of veneer. And that would mean that the machine was not accurate enough the way that I operated it, or maybe there's some problem with the machine, I don't know. I sanded through the veneer. I didn't finish this yet, but I must have come off like that. So this was poor sanding technique right there. That's what that was. But I want to keep going and see if I can do this edge here or not. This side's done. So now this side. Nope, that's a hard no. Look at that, I sanded right through. Yep, I was not accurate enough for this board. Maybe I should have clamped it and then sanded it, then glued and clamped it, because I could have replaced that board over there. Well, there it is right there. There we go. All right, that's perfect. So if you can see, let me see what you can see. Yeah, you should be able to see some dark grain through here. That dark grain means that I've basically sanded down through the outer layer, the first veneer, to the point where you can see the glue. Now, that's pretty close. I mean, I don't see the point of doing it again. I think that I could have fixed this board by replacing it with one that's just the exact same size, re-drill it, and then I think what I would have had to have done is shorten this board just a hair by sanding it on this side. I'm sure that my checks, when I was checking the sizes of all the boards and making them correct, I must have had one of these boards, well, this board here, must have been short. It must have been. So maybe if I was more careful with my cutting, I know I was doing the cutting on a sliding table saw, and when you're doing really small pieces like this, the sliding table saw isn't the best. I should have used the other side of the blade with a fence. That probably would have been a lot more accurate. But I'm still getting used to this sliding saw, and yeah, I didn't think of it. I would have normally done this on my regular table saw, but that's out of commission at the moment. Meanwhile, if this, if I needed this to do something with it, it would be perfect. I mean, it's paint grade, obviously, but it's nice. There's nothing wrong with it at this point as a paint grade object. But yeah, so I guess that's where the demo ends. I want to say that when I get time to do another project that needs this machine, if it doesn't sell quickly, I will probably replace this video with a different demo. Hopefully a more successful one, an actual project, I'm sure, because I'm sure I'm not going to have time to just do another demo. But it's pretty close. I'm actually pretty happy with it. I should have clamped it and sanded it. Then I would have realized that I needed to fix this. Because when I went to go sand it, I would have noticed that this would have made this piece bad. Then I could have answered that by slightly sanding this corner mainly on this piece, just slightly, basically feathering down to nothing over here, but just take, a 64th off of this, right? Probably could have done it by hand. And then just make a new piece, and bada boom, bada bing, I would have been all set. And I would have had a perfect box. Yeah. Yeah, if I get a chance, I'll use that technique on video and get a better demo up there. But I think you saw the machine and how it works, and if you're a careful sort of person, you can definitely make some really sharp boxes with this. All right, talk to you later.